For the last 46 years that I created the Black Panther Party, let me say to you, power to the people. All power to all the people. That's where we started in October of 1966 in Oakland, California, in the United States of America, where police brutality was so rampant and out of hand in our communities, and also rampant against all peaceful demonstrators, peaceful protesters, peaceful marchers, where politicians ordered their National Guard, their police, their highway patrol, and others with tear gas, shotguns, billy clubs to brutalize, shoot, kill, and murder peaceful protesters. Peaceful protesters who then, at that time, were standing up and protesting about the need for constitutional, democratic, civil, human rights to be afforded to all people. That the constitutional framework in the United States spelled out these basic constitutional rights back in those days. It was another time and another period, but it was a revolutionary period. The overt, vicious, outright, murderous discrimination, the very institutionalized racism in every aspect, in every crack, cranny, and corner of the United States of America was already being protested before I came along with the Black Panther Party. What was happening in South Africa, as I remember in the early 1960s being in college, with the Sharpeville massacres, and then Nelson Mandela put on trial in 1963 and sentenced to life in prison, protesting and organizing his people for their human liberation in Africa and around the world. And simultaneously, an illegal war, unnecessary illegal war in Vietnam was going on at the time. That was a period and a time when I gave up my job. Most people don't even know that I was working in the engineering department at a company called Kaiser Aerospace and Electronics right outside of Oakland, California. That I worked in the engineering department on the Gemini missile program when they were popping satellites up around the earth in those days. They don't know that later on I was still employed by the city government of Oakland, California at the time Huey P. Newton and I created the Black Panther Party. And it was not just the police brutality that we were about. We were young students. Huey Newton had gotten an associate arts degree in sociology and went on to law school. I was an engineering design major in college at Merritt College, and at the same time had a full-time job at night working on the Gemini missile program. And one day they killed John F. Kennedy. Malcolm X said something about the chickens coming home to roost, and he left the Nation of Islam. And when he left, I was really happy. But more importantly, a year or so later, they killed and murdered Malcolm X. So, the people who influenced me were Nelson Mandela, Malcolm X, and none other than Dr. Martin Luther King himself. As a young man in 1962, when I first began to research about African and African American people's history of struggle, I already knew about Native American people's history because I had identified with them when I was 16. But there I was, a 26-year-old man researching my African American history. And Dr. Martin Luther King came to Oakland, California, to the Oakland Auditorium to speak. 7,000 people in the audience, and I was one student right there. And Dr. Martin Luther King was not the average preacher talking about the hereafter, milk and honey in heaven. He was talking about what the hell we got to do out here on these bricks out here, about jobs, employment, etc., and about ending discrimination in America. And he categorized all the companies across America that refused to hire black and people of color, refused to hire them. And he got to the bread companies after he did this 20-minute speech, and he says, and we're going to boycott these bread companies. We're going to boycott Langendorf Bread Company, and we're going to boycott Kilpatrick's Bread Company, and we want to boycott Wonder Bread Company. We want to boycott them so persistently and so profoundly, we want to make Wonder Bread wonder where the money went. That's what Martin Luther King told us that day. I was a young man being inspired. In that Oakland Auditorium, 7,000 of us jumped up, applauding and giving a standing ovation. So the three main leaders in struggle, human history and struggle, that influenced me those very first days was none other than Nelson Mandela, Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King. The other influences I had was none other than Frantz Fanon, Wretched of the Earth, that book, that work. I must have digested that book backwards, forward, sideways, and catacomb, and underlined it, highlighted, re-underlined, and re-highlighted to understand it and know it. And that was what was happening in those days. I began to study my African-American history, and I wasn't so much into the aesthetics. Culture was cool, etc. I wasn't about the necessity of where I wore an African robe or not. What happened to me, being a metallurgist, being an engineer, etc., is I got interested in the mineral resources in the bowels of the earth in Africa. I found out about the cobalt. I found out about the gold. I found out about the copper in the southern Katanga province in the 1960s when they went to war down there. And the reason they went to war, killing and murdering Africans who wanted to control their own Leopoldville, Congo, where Lumumba was killed, I found out it was all about that southern Katanga province, because at that time, the southern Katanga province in Africa was producing 1/4 of all the world's copper ore. All the world's copper ore. And I'm saying that this was the exploitation foundation. And then I looked up in my research of Africa and the colonialization of it to realize and see that all in Western Africa was bauxite. Bauxite was a mineral ore that was extremely plentiful. And then I realized, after being in the Air Force and all that stuff, I says, wow, bauxite, that's the basis of all aluminum products manufactured in the world. I said, the economics of that, the jobs connected with that, etc., etc. My God, what's going on here? I began to get a hellified worldview, a worldview of understanding what was going on. Avaricious corporate monopoly capitalism. It blew my mind. I looked around and said, wait a minute, we got to do something about this. Yes. John F. Kennedy was killed. Malcolm X left the Nation of Islam. And after 3 years and 3 months, I quit my engineering job because I wanted to work and organize in my own grassroots black communities. And these are the things, some of the things, that blew my mind. In studying and researching my history, I learned that African Americans in the Civil War in the United States of America from 1860 to 1865, that after the Emancipation Proclamation, more than 180,000 black men was enlisted into the Northern Union Army. 38,000 died, kicking the asses of the Confederates who was maintaining the peculiar institution of vicious slavery and exploitation. My point here is this, brothers and sisters, that I begin to understand that we have a battle going on here, a battle for humanity's existence. And that began to make me understand that we got to do something. Well, it evolved to a point that one day, a year and a half after Malcolm X was killed, I told Huey we need to write a new program. Huey says, okay, we need to write a 10-point platforming program. Huey was my friend. So we wrote our 10-point platforming program. Number one, we wanted full employment for the people. Number two, we wanted decent housing, fit for shelter, human beings. Number three, we wanted decent education that taught us about our true history. Number four, we wanted an end to the robbery and exploitation of our grassroots hardcore communities. We want the people to have power and greater community cooperatives so they can organize to liberate themselves on an economic level. We wanted free preventative medical health care clinics. Number seven, we wanted an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people. Because that time, there was so much police brutality. The stuff you may hear about today from Rodney King and on, and that's vicious police brutality, including Mavon and Oscar Grant and stuff, murder and police brutality. But back in those days, they were killing black folks, Chicano folks, Mexican folks, and killing some white left radicals and others who were protesting. Nobody was going to trial. They didn't even put these fascists on trial. And so Huey P. Newton and I decided that we're going to write this 10-point platforming program. And point number seven, we said we wanted an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people in our black community. Number eight, we want all black men and women and people of color who've been tried by all white juries to have a right to another trial, so you can have some black and colored people on some of these juries who represented the average reasoning person in our own black community. And that's what we were about. And we said we was going to go out here and we're going to patrol the police. It'll be our first political move, because we're a new grassroots political party. And we decided we're going to have some law books and some tape recorders. And so since Huey by then was in law school, he says we can take legal guns too with us. I says, yeah, because if we don't, and we go out there trying to patrol the police, they're going to beat us up, shoot us up. We should defend ourselves. And that's what we believe. And we were going to go out there with our guns. But it was not guns like you see some of these young brothers trying to be all macho and they got their pistol in it. That wasn't what it was about. We were students. Huey is in law school. I'm an engineering design major still at this time. I was quite familiar with guns. I was raised with guns all my life. My father bought me my first .30-30 Winchester high-powered rifle when I was 12 years of age. Besides teaching me the skills of being a carpenter, my father taught me to be a hunter and a fisherman. So I knew guns. And guns to me was just a tool to be used at a particular time in a particular situation, whether you hunting, etc. But now we were getting ready to apply it in another kind of way. We knew the law that we had a right to stand and observe the police. So we organized it took 2 months to organize our first 14 Black Panther Party members. First 14 Black Panther Party members. One was a sister, a female, and we all went out with our uniforms. Everybody was trained in safety of guns, etc. and so on. Our guns were loaded. And when we got out there in the nightlife streets at nighttime, we got out of our cars and stood up and watched the police. And he turned around, and Huey was trying to explain to people, we're here to watch these policemen who've been brutalizing us, to observe these policemen. And the cop turns around and says, "You have no right to observe me." And Huey P. Newton says, "No, such the California State Supreme Court ruling states that every citizen has the right to stand and observe a police officer carrying out his duty as long as they stand a reasonable distance away. A reasonable distance that particular rule is constituted 8.2 and we observe you whether you like it or not." And some sister on the sidewalk, she said, "Well, go ahead on and tell it, brother." And the cop says, "Is that gun loaded?" Huey said, "If I know it's loaded, that's good enough." "Well, I have a right." Huey said, "Step back, you have no right." Huey cited some Supreme Court ruling, somebody versus so-and-so. "Therefore, you cannot remove my property from me without due process of law." "Step back, you cannot touch my weapon." Oh, black brother over here on the side, he said, "Man, what kind of Negroes is these? I ain't never seen nothing like this." Well, if that gun's loaded, Huey says, "Like I said, you cannot touch my weapon." Then he jacked around off in the chamber. Clack, clack. And all the other brothers who had long guns, clack, 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 clack. And the cop really realized, because it was dark, he hadn't even looked to the left and right. It was 14 of us. We were all armed. Some who carried the handguns carried the 10-point platforms and program. Little Bobby Hutton carried a long gun, so I put the strap to the tape recorder around his neck and it turned the tape recorder. So we recorded everything. And the methodology was, we're not going to have a whole bunch of people speaking. First, let the cop say something to us. He say something to us. He said, because if you interrupt the cop first, we could be arrested for interfering with a police officer. But under the law, he had researched, if you say something to us first, then we can answer. The cop got his little arrestee and left. And I said, brothers and sisters, we're a new organization. There's about 50, 60 people on the sidewalk. We're the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. We're going to do a lot of political, electoral, community unity organizing. We're going to have programs in the community. Now, our political education sessions at our first office, I already set an office for ourselves, at 5624 Grove Street in North Oakland. And we have PE classes tomorrow, Saturday at 2 p.m., etc., and so on. But the patrolling of the police for 6 months in the city of San Francisco, in the city of Oakland, California, in the city of Richmond, California, all these cities in the San Francisco Oakland Bay Area, lasted for 6 months. We were as legal as you could be. And it got to a point that the police were angry with us. And the people in the community, if they saw an arrest going on, people in the community, now you better not be brutalizing nobody while you arrest that person, because we'll call the Black Panthers over here with their guns. We were a ragtag organization. I don't think we had 25 members in the whole Black Panther, and half of us had jobs we had to go to. But my point is, the fact that we patrolled those police caused the California state legislature to start trying to put a law in to try to stop us from carrying our legal guns, try to stop us from carrying legal weapons. And that is why those posters everybody's been buying. You're buying a poster of when I led an armed delegation May 2nd, 1967, the day after May Day, to the California State Legislature, 24 Black Panthers and 24 male Black Panthers and 6 female Black Panthers, all armed with guns. And I led that delegation to the California State Legislature. So at my table over there, I've been autographing posters for the last 2 hours. And those posters of myself and Lil Bobby Hutton, and a famous picture that was taken while we in the halls of the California State Legislature. What happened in that situation is some of my Panthers wound up in the assembly itself, with the assembly people ducking under their seats because they thought the Panthers were going to shoot them, but we weren't going to shoot them. In other words, that particular incident of leading these people, these Black Panthers, into the California State Legislature, May 2nd, 1967, went around the world. It'll be the first time that probably people in Sweden, May 2nd, 1967, heard of this organization in the Black called the Black Panther Party. And I led that delegation. So I'm just saying, it was another time. There was so much brutality, not only on the black community, but all the peaceful protesters, the young white, black, Chicano protesters, everybody. And we had to deal with another level. They were trying to suppress us totally out and put us totally out of commission. It evolved to a point in April of 1968, the Black Panther Party was a year and a half old. I only had 400 members in several chapter city offices up and down the West Coast. Then they murdered Dr. Martin Luther King, April 4th, 1968. From that point on, young brothers and people like Fred Hampton and Bobby Rush, who's now a United States Congressman, they, back in those days, flew out to California for us to give them the authority to set up a Chicago chapter. Then there was Seattle, Washington. Then there was other places. Next thing I know, in 5 months' time, from 400 members up and down the West Coast, I had 5,000 members in the Black Panther Party in 49 cities, 49 chapters and branches of the Black Panther Party throughout the United States of America. But our organization was about more than just having a battle, a standoff with police and stuff like that, or shootouts that occurred. Those 10-point programs, we talked about employment, decent housing. We intellectually begin to research, know, and understand, debate, and realize that this was a class struggle, more so. Race was used in the basis of a class struggle. We were talking about humanity. So our slogan became all power to all the people. When they would even kill our young white left radical friends who were protesting in behalf of our civil rights, and then we looked at the whole picture of this thing, we had to really change something. So we wound up in coalition politics with some 35 different organizations, crossing all racial and ethnic lines. Anybody whose heart, mind, and soul was progressive enough to want to stand up for human liberation, economically, politically, and social justice-wise, we said we're going to work with them and organize with them. Beginning with the Peace and Freedom Party, SDSC for Democratic Society. Just before Martin Luther King was killed, Dr. Reverend Ralph Abernathy, the second organizer with Dr. King with SCLC, Dr. Reverend Ralph Abernathy called me up. Bobby Seale, you're the chairman of the Black Panther Party. We would like, Dr. King would like to know, would you be willing to participate in a round table representing some 100 different organizations to help hammer out a practical goal objective of an economic program and to further identify all the common issues that all these organizations in America are working on. And I says, definitely, we want to work with SCLC and Dr. Martin Luther King. A lot of people tried to distinguish us and say, oh, these guys are nonviolent and we were violent. They tried to call us terrorists. But I thought we were quite civil. You got your gun. The cop says you can't observe him. Civilly, we cited the law to him that we can observe your ass. I thought we were quite civil. They call us terrorists. I mean, they called me 1,000. I said, what are you talking about? I work in the gym and I miss a program. What are you talking about? I'm a jazz drummer. What are you talking about? I said, I'm a stand-up comedian. What are you talking about calling me a hoodlum? I ain't no goddamn hoodlum. You know, that's what Ronald Reagan, the governor of California, called me. Bobby Seale and their hoodlum thugs walking around here with guns, blah, 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 blah. No, we have a 10-point platform and program here. I said, did you read the last part of the 10-point platform and program? I say it cites the founding documentation of this very country. What? I say, yes, it says, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for any one people to dissolve the political bondage which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station in which the laws of nature, nature's God entitled them a decent respect to the opinions of humankind, dictates that they should declare the causes which impel them to dissolve that political bondage. When a long train of abuses and usurpations pursues and invariably evinces a design to reduce a people under absolute despotism, then it is the right of the people to alter, change that government and provide new guards for their future security inhabitants. I said, now read that, motherfucker. That says, we got a right to keep your ass out. So we're going to organize the votes. We're going to organize the people. We're going to unify the people. We're going to unify them around the programs. I mean, I had breakfast programs, all kinds of programs. It got to a point that the free breakfast program got so popular. The California State Legislature made a move to put $5 million in to go to all schools for free breakfast and free lunch programs for all students in all schools. J. Edgar Hoover gets on television. The Black Panthers Breakfast for Children program is a threat to the internal security of America. It is communist inspired. Bobby Seale and other hoodlums, blah, blah. We're terrorists because we're feeding kids breakfast, hungry kids in our poor and low-income communities. But that bill, listen to me, brothers, finally went up to Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan vetoes $4 million of it. This is $5 million a year. The California State Assembly and the Senate got the bill and overrode his damn veto and put the whole damn $5 million in. Then it caused 28 state legislatures across the United States of America to put that same bill in. That's just one example of not only protesting, but putting up real programs, unifying the electorate around them. And the next thing you know, you had some legislators trying to act like they had some damn sense and do something that made human sense, make some legislation make human sense. So this struggle, brothers and sisters, continues, not only in America, but around the world. The people, the masses of the people. I feel so good being here, you know, because you have great social democratic parties and workers and all kind of frameworks here. I was just talking to some of the people downtown in Gothenburg, and he was reminding me that 80% of the citizens here in Sweden belongs to a union. That's very important. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with that. Because in America, only 10%, less than 10%, it has dropped from 20-some% to 10% of the workers are in a union. What we do have is almost 100 people in the House who are progressive voters. They vote for progressive issues. They vote for legislation that makes human sense. And what we need in America is to get all 459 seats in the lower house elected who are progressive. I'm telling you, the billionaires, the Koch brothers in the United States of America have billionaire meetings. And they have billionaire meetings to put money up to stop Obama and any other progressive legislators. We have legislators who will vote them down. Congresswoman Barbara Lee and Congressman Bobby Rush are also part of those legislators who vote progressively. Who is Congressman Bobby Rush? He is the former Deputy Minister of Defense of the Black Panther Party out of Chicago, Illinois chapter. Who is Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who voted against Bush's war package when he started the Afghan war? None other than Congresswoman Barbara Lee. She's a former community worker with my organization, the Black Panther Party. So I'm trying to tell you, out of all of that, we got 2 congressmen, and we got a lot of brothers and sisters who are politicians in the local community area. So we have unfinished business. We do, you do, everybody has, in trying to get legislative frameworks and legislators who will vote for progressive issues, who will vote for economic parity, who will vote for a greater empowerment of the people, economically, politically, and social justice-wise. This is what our goal objective is. This is my continuing goal objective. I am 75 years of age. Of course, I stopped drinking alcohol 20-some odd years ago. And I stopped smoking, all that. I didn't stop making love, though. But I stopped smoking And I've been going to the gym really since I was 47. I'm now 75. So I'm still able to hop around and get around. And I go all over the country. I work with Eastside Arts Alliance. My buddy and former comrade, Stephen Evans, is here with me. He flew in with me. Stephen Evans is a former Black Panther Party member of the Houston chapter of the Black Panther Party. Stephen Edwards is a filmmaker. He's got a master's degree in filmmaking from UCLA, University of California. We are making a movie on my life story. All the action adventure stuff of human involvement and protest, the shootouts, the battles, the aches, pains. I mean, I organized an organization by the end of 1969 as chairman and the national organizer of the Black Panther Party. I had 28 dead Black Panther Party members, 69 wounded. And all of our attempt to defend ourselves, some 12 policemen were killed. The politicians ordered the policemen down to attack us, and we defended our office. They wouldn't let us take the arrest. They just came in shooting. That's what they started doing. Just like old Hitler's fascist operation. And when that second and main shootout happened in Los Angeles, because we had networked with so many people in so many different organizations, from the labor unions to the whoever, from the movie actors to CORE to the liberals, whoever, etc. We got all of these brothers and sisters and people, movie actors, Sammy Davis Jr., etc., to come out against the FBI, to come out against the FBI and the police attacking our offices. Because by this time I got 28 dead people at the end of 1969. 3 weeks later, a young white policeman, the Berkeley Police Department, had been overhearing the FBI and other police plan their attack for the national headquarters office of my organization, the Black Panther Party, in Berkeley, California at the time. He was so impressed with so many people coming out, he stole their damn plans, took the plans to our lawyer, and we put it on the front page. Here's the next planned attack of the FBI on the national headquarters. Then the young white liberal mayor in Seattle, Washington, got on television. He says, we want the FBI out of our police department. You're trying to make plans to attack the Seattle chapter of the Black Panther Party. We're not going to have you attacking the Black Panther Party. And I'm telling you, everybody from the NAACP to whoever organization really came to our defense. And then it caused a Senate investigation hearing. Senator Ted Kennedy and Senator Church called the FBI to the carpet, put him on grueling hot seat for 10 days in the United States Senate. It was all on television. Why you're running around here attacking the Black Panthers? They register people to vote. They run for political office. These are American citizens. And just because you don't like them because they said they defend themselves. Well, it took that Senate investigation, all those people in that Senate investigation hearing, to stop all the attacks on the Black Panther Party office. That's what happened. That's the smoking gun evidence of the FBI working under the tutelage of Nixon, Richard M. Nixon, then the president. So what I'm trying to say, and do say, and I'm sure you say and feel the same, when I talk about the need for economic parenting, economic systems, I talk a lot about the need for greater community control of economic frameworks that retail and produce services and goods. How do we do that? And I've been doing research and working in various groups and organizations. Right now we have about 1,000 worker-owned businesses in the United States of America. But my objective is to educate people to a point to where in the next 10 years we need to have 10,000 worker-owned businesses. And then from there, 100,000 worker-owned businesses of one kind or another. In other words, that old dialectics, the negation of negation. If the avaricious corporate money-rich power structure is controlled, the more and more we create worker-owned businesses or cooperatives or cooperative frameworks that supply jobs, etc. The more we do this, the more we negate the avaricious power structure. Now in the process, I believe they're going to attack us. Because in the past, labor organizing rights in America has a long history of the corporate money rich bringing down from the old Pinkertons to police and others to shoot, kill, murder demonstrators and protesters. I mean, this has been a long struggle. But we live in an overdeveloped, high-tech, fast-paced, computerized, scientific, technological, social order nowadays. We're not even living in the 60s. Our overdeveloped, high-tech, fast-paced, computerized, scientific, technological, social order has been globalized, but globalized and controlled by that 1% of the avaricious corporate money rich who controls 80% of all the world's wealth. That paradigm has got to change. It's got to go the other way, so that people have greater control of the economic framework that we can produce services and goods. This is the struggle. We're not going to get out of it. We have to keep going. We have to keep stepping. We have to keep supporting. We have to have a whole lot of coalition politics, just like the Black Panther Party had coalition politics in the old 1960s. This is what's got to go. Because it's about us building and evolving step by step, piece by piece, protest by protest, organizational effort by organizational effort, etc., etc., etc. On a consistent basis, we're looking for that future, present to future world of cooperational humanism, economically, political, and social justice-wise. That's what the power structure is about. Many of us have died for it and struggled for it. So let me say, with embracing warm feelings to you, power to the people, power to the people, power to the people. All power to all the people. All right, now if you want to come over there later on and buy some books, I'll be ready to honor you. Thank you very much. I love you. Power.